I think that this will, with people kind of like getting up the courage to actually not be intimidated by the market anymore. I know that most of the time people are intimidated by the market because it's like, you know, the emotional feeling attached to losing. Everybody's familiar with that. Everybody knows what that feels like, right? So one of the reasons that you stay reluctant when it comes to the market is because you trying to avoid that feeling. You know what I'm saying? You doing everything that you can to avoid the feeling, including questioning yourself when you actually are learning something that's gonna put you in position not to lose. You see? So even though everyone is training, you still have to get over that hump that is inside of you. That's a hump that you have. You got it because you know what it feels like to lose, and you don't like the feeling. So I'm going to tell y'all a secret about something that I did psychologically to trick my brain. And I had to do this because I'm compulsive. I have OCD. So what I did was I actually began to think about the times when I lost. I thought about every time that I lost something, whatever it was, a game, when I was a kid, I used to I would have a tantrum if I lost like a video game. Like I remember when I couldn't beat Mike Tyson's Punch Out yet. Every time I got to Mike Tyson, I would lose. And, that was with Nintendo. It wasn't no save. Like you couldn't save the game and none of that. If you lost to him, you had to start from the beginning. Anybody that know about Nintendo know what I'm talking about, right? So this is one of the things that I use. I use Mike Tyson's Punch Out as my memory. So I thought about how I used to feel when I would lose that game. Every time that I would lose to Mike Tyson, I used to cry. And I'm talking about like cry and want to fight. Like if whoever was in the house with me, they was yelling and screaming and like they thought something happened. Nothing happened. I just lost. I lost to Mike Tyson again. That's what happened. So I'm thinking back to how that felt to me. And what I did was, instead of hating that feeling, what I started doing was I started training myself to love how that felt. This is what I did. I flipped it on my brain. I started to actually love the feeling, which is, if you talk you talk about insanity, that just sounds retarded. But this is what I did, and it worked. I trained myself in my brain. I conditioned myself to love how that felt. So instead of me wanting to cry, I actually got happy, like, yeah, see, lost again. Yes. Lost again. Yes. And I flipped it around in my brain. And then what I did was, when I finally beat the game, it's so funny because when you beat the game, you feel a great relief and you feel a sense of accomplishment. But then what happens to the feeling? The feeling goes away, don't it? Like it dies off. So it doesn't even last long. You won, but the feeling don't last long enough. So you actually get a longer lasting feeling from the pain than you do from the joy of the win. Does that make sense? I'm telling you, this is what I did, and this literally worked for me. Literally. Like, I'm not even joking. I flipped it around just like that, and I started to learn how to enjoy the feeling of losing, because I knew that every time that I lost, it was getting me closer to the win, and I would feel disappointed by the time I did win, because I know that the win would not last. That feeling don't last long enough. Does that make sense? So I tricked myself, and this is what flipped my psychological shit that I got. Like this flipped my head around mentally so that I began to be cold and numb. Like that was the goal. My goal was to become numb. See, if you don't have any reaction to anything, you're actually in the best place. And I'm talking about as far as at an emotional level. When you don't react, that's when you're at your most powerful state, because you're not reacting either way. You don't have a reaction if you lose. You don't have a reaction if you win. And this all came about by me flipping it around. It's like I flipped it around in my head, and when I reversed it, that's when everything changed, because I removed. It's like I had to do that to remove the effect of the emotion that I was feeling. You understand? So it's not like I don't give a shit about anything in life. It's that I don't care enough to have an emotional reaction to it. Does that make sense? So it's like, all right, if you lose, so what? It's kind of like saying to yourself, all right, if you lose it, hey, so what? Now, people will say that, right? But they don't mean it. They're saying that if I lose, so what? But it hurts them when they lose. You saying it, but it stings the shit out of you when you actually lose, though. You know what I'm saying? And then it turns into depression, and it can turn into a lot of negative shit for you. So you have to psych yourself out to get around the mechanisms of how your brain works and how your emotional system works. This is crazy stuff, because this is stuff I just did on my own. Like, nobody taught me any of this. It's just stuff I figured out on my own. I'm like, what if I flipped it around? Like, what if I love losing? What if I did that and it worked?